but we should. The idea of today is really to get informally, very in a way that we can discuss openly the steps, the processes, what we have in mind for the project, giving you some more detailed information compared to the one that you got already in December and that we have been discussing bilaterally in the past few months. We have a little bit of our presentation shared to share with you, but the reality is that really this is an open discussion. Okay, so feel free to interrupt myself, colleagues at any point to ask any question that you might have. This is the moment for you and for us to get to the details of what we intend to do, how we intend to do it, why, and which are the objectives of our joint work. Maybe before we get into the details of the project and this more informal exchange, we have a little few ideas shared and few opinions opening from the representative of the implementing partners, Shipra, Gulnara, and Sara, representing Habitat EC and UCLG. Colleagues of UNECE, as you can imagine, being sitting in New York, they were not able to join because it's quite early for them, but they are fully on board as key partners also of the project itself. So, Shipra, maybe over to you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks very much. Thanks, Martino. Good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone again. And really very happy to be here with UNECE. Thanks, Gulnara, and with UCLG. Nothing beats the in-person meetings, honestly, even in this hybrid world. I think the ability to exchange and come to consensus and come to a common approach is really facilitated by this kind of a setting. So thanks for bringing us together. And really, this is the first sort of in-person meeting of the partners and the cities and the countries. So it's really a very valuable moment that we should use to set the direction and come to a common understanding for the project. And of course, because I will forget at the end, the teams that have been working really hard to make this happen, from our side, Martino, Telman, folks in Nairobi, Gaia, Marta, there's a whole army back there, Ludovica and Tamara and others, but also from ECE's side, all of your teams, Anya, Veronica, Felix, everyone who's really worked very hard to bring it here. Of course, we are very grateful to the cities and the countries, the national governments and the local governments for their commitment. It is a very important principle for us to move hand in hand together with the national and the local levels, because this is an absolute central, a cornerstone of this project. That is, we are not just dealing with an individual city, but we are dealing with the whole governance system, and the national they must go together. Must go hand in hand. For me, that's very important. We're going to talk a little bit about, or a lot, I hope, about what the program intends to do, the project intends to do, its outputs, its deliverables. But there are 3-4 pieces that I want to just flag, which are very important to your habitat. Maybe just in terms of principles, the first is consistency of approach. We talked about contextualization yesterday. It's very important. We don't want to straitjacket the VLRs into a very fixed type of model. But at the same time, we want to make sure that the approach that we deploy are consistent, and the lessons we learn from them can be, distilled and shared and scaled up much more widely. around the region. The second is that in continuation of that, but the second piece is really how we're going to use data and how we're going to inform the VLRs. And there are many different approaches, but we'll hear about the UMF, which for us is a central underpinning in addition to all the other experiences for the VLR processes. In terms of zooming out, I think it's very important to understand that VLRs are becoming important. The movement is important, but fundamentally it is SDG localization, which is becoming the important philosophy in the last couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years, particularly. We have been working on localization, all of us, for a very long time. As we said yesterday, UCLG, since the beginning of the Agenda 2030, Habitat, ECE, and others. But really the traction we have gained, the political traction, the political acceptance of this localization as the accelerator to achieve the SDGs is really something quite new, quite disruptive, and quite important. And we must make use of this opportunity, this commitment of national governments, this commitment of international agencies and actors towards localization. So the moment is very important. This moment was not with us 2 years ago. I can promise you that. We did not have this momentum and this opportunity, this window of opportunity 2 years ago. We had, the G20 under the Italian presidency launched the G20 platform on intermediary cities and SDG localization. For the first time, UCLG, UN Habitat were in the room talking to the G20 Development Working Group about localization, about cities, and that was a very important. The G7 has mentioned it. The Commonwealth has mentioned it. The high-level meeting of the New Urban Agenda that took place last year strongly mentioned it. The Secretary General in his report, Our Common Agenda, talks about localization, the importance of local action, etc. So we're really at a very crucial juncture. And then, of course, we have the Local 2030 Coalition, which is the UN system-wide platform, revamped, revitalized, renewed, new in its shape and form to make sure that if there is a political momentum and there is a demand from the bottom, then the UN system is ready to respond to that demand. We are not. The UN system as a whole, one, it is not a homogeneous entity, but two, it is not well equipped. All parts of the UN system, let's say, are not well equipped to work at the local level. There are very few of us who actually have been working consistently at the local level, but more and more they recognize that they need to, yet they don't know how to. And the Local 2030 Coalition really wants to build up that engagement between a much broader cross-section of UN entities with local actors to advance the SDGs. This is, again, a very important opportunity. The other thing that we raised it yesterday, and I would like to reiterate that for us, SDG localization goes hand in hand with multi-level governance. It's not about national, and this is also something we have to guard against. It's not about national governments abdicating their responsibilities and saying, okay, localization, now you want to take everything at the local level, just do it and run with it and be held accountable for it. No. National governments have to be held accountable for creating the enabling environments, the empowering environments for local governments in order to accelerate the SDGs. That's why VNRs, VLRs, national, local, have to go together, have to go hand in hand. So for us, localization does not mean uniquely local action. Localization means that there is a partnership between national and local within a framework of multi-level governance. Otherwise, localization is being set up to fail. And that's not a difference. The third think that's very so it's very important for us is that this region for UN Habitat has not been a very we have not traditionally been very active in this region. We've been active in Southeastern Europe traditionally for a very long time, but really Eastern Europe, Central Asia is not a region that we have made very strong inroads into traditionally. Where we have done it in partnership with you and with ECE, and that's why this partnership is very important. That together we expand this messaging on localization, on multi-level governance, on empowering local governments, on engaging local government associations, on building the conversation and bridges between national and local. We do it together. But we use this project to expand the conversation across the entire region because the region has a lot of differences, but also a lot of commonalities in countries in transition. And you're really the experts in this space. We don't want to stop at this project. We don't want to stop at this activity. We want to use this as an opportunity to open doors for a lot more in these countries. SDG localization is not in a vacuum. VLRs are not in a vacuum. Ultimately, VLRs are instruments for evidence-based policy making. So VLRs are supposed to identify the areas where you should focus on in order to achieve the SDGs or to achieve recovery after these multiple crises that we have been facing, or to contribute to the Paris Agreement, or to contribute to the development agenda. So for us, the voluntary local reviews are an output and a deliverable and an outcome of this program, but we hope that what will happen as a result of it is that cities and countries will identify the areas that they need to focus on, to invest in. And we hope that we can bring together UNECE and Habitat can bring in the rest of the UN system to actually start supporting cities to address those weaknesses, address those challenges, and go forward. Because ultimately it is about data being an instrument for policy rather than data being an instrument for itself. VLRs being an instrument for policy planning, financing and implementation rather than in and of themselves. I just want to leave you with those thoughts. I think we are not starting from scratch. We're building up on several years of experience and several partners' experience, not just ours, UCLG, others very much included in that space. But we have to go a step further, both in terms of within these countries, but also across the region, and use this as an accelerator project globally. I'll leave it there. Thanks. Thanks, Martina.
Thanks to you, Shipra, and indeed just underline exactly the feeling and the spirit of the project, which is a building block that we really would like to use jointly to build something in the long term, something that it's wider than the VLR and something that can really be transformative. Kulnara?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Martina. Thank you so much for organizing the meeting today. Shipra, thank you so much for your partnership and your leadership. And I think we really appreciate this partnership and common understanding that you actually personally come and take time to speak together, and so that we could plan and design things. And many thanks also to CLG, really, getting into closer partnerships as well as UNDESA. I think that's really important for us, to work together on this project. So I just made a few slides, like 3 slides for the start. To explain, UNECE is an intergovernmental body. So I think historically since 1947, first of all, as a kind of a housing panel, just right after the Marshall Plan after the Second World War, we were created. Our Committee on Urban Development was created actually as a panel to coordinate building and construction standards to make sure that construction materials after the war for reconstruction of Europe would freely go across Europe so that all the buildings, all the roads would be reconstructed very quickly after the war. So this is why this committee was created after the war, you know. So we kind of equipped for dealing with crisis, but it's through intergovernmental mechanism. So it was intergovernmental body, 24/7 for that, working with the national government, and we were issuing this standard bulletins on construction standards, just to make sure that all across Europe they use the same, you know, for logs, for windows, so everything the same. So historically, we are very much intergovernmental structure. I think over the time, we expanded at some topics. I think the housing policies is one of the topics where we expanded, but of course, we share very much with UNHabitat the approach that housing has to be part of the city, has to be of the urban fabric. You know, inequality inside of housing, equality outside of housing is important, but, you know, still housing remains to be kind of a very big, traditionally important part of the work. We are working also very closely on more kind of now on urban design and planning, and we really see that the urban planning part is doesn't, I mean, I think we stated this before, that urban planning part, urban design part still remains to be understated, not having really the political attention that it should have. We also have a separate intergovernmental group on land administration, which is dealing with registration of properties, just to make sure that that all, you know, we all have access to information, who is owning what. Yeah, and UNECE also has intergovernmental bodies on sustainable transport. We just in the morning were mentioning to say about our transport colleagues. We also have quite strong intergovernmental committee on statistics, so on which we actually building our work as well. But what we observed during the last 20 years, decentralization of implementation. 20 years ago, as a part of this Committee on Urban Development, we worked with the national government also on the implementation, on the budgeting for housing, budgeting for urban development, planning the cities. But we saw the dynamics in the Committee on Urban Development that with the time, with the 20 years, the governments became really only regulators, becoming, I mean, of course, context from the city to city, from one country to another is very, very different. However, we saw a lot of, especially in connection to 2029 economic crisis, we saw lots of decentralization of power. So with that, implementation went to the local level. So in a way, we're going from the national level to the local level, and this is why in the Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Management, UNECE, now also the local level becoming very, very important. And this is why UNECE is working so much stronger at the municipal level. But while we're still keeping a very close connection to our national focal points, also through its bureau, where we have 14 UNECE member states. Our concerns, as we are working very closely with the cities and national governments, I think we are in a very difficult period of time for Europe, for our region, because you know, we are still going from the post-COVID recovery, and we had together with UNHabitat and with other UN agencies a project on the post-COVID recovery, where Bishkek was one of the pilot projects. So while we're working with this, we really see very dramatic consequences of climate change, environmental pollution, also the ongoing war, of course, adding so much more additional strain on the countries in the region, on all countries in the region, basically making worse food crisis, energy crisis, and demographic crisis not going anywhere. The aging population in the Western Europe, the issue of the young people, younger population in Central Asia, this is all the case. So our concern is that, all these synergies in the different crises, we don't see them short term, but the long term, it can create lots of political instabilities in the region. So we see a very serious, we're very much concerns about longer term consequences. So this is why we think that this work on the VLRs and working with the cities is really urgent. You know, so we need, we need to step up and being much more creative, much more, trying really more innovative approaches, being much more agile in really helping cities who actually doing the implementation in addressing this crisis. This is why we're doing, we will continue with this post-COVID recovery. We are continuing with the smart city project where we also have Tbilisi, Tbilisi, Podgorica, and other cities. We would like to continue working with the cities. This is why we established Forum of Mayors as a kind of a team of specialists under the Committee of Urban Development, which will be meeting regularly. And so we're grateful partnership, and what we really, really hope to work with Human Habitat, or maybe on even some in the pilot city, look into the innovative approaches where we can really do data for policies. But yes, I agree with, I think Spirit was your comment yesterday. There were lots of data, but not enough policies, right? So how we actually do policies, how we do programs, how we, address this multiple crises. So, and just to reiterate, we remain to be with our mandate at UNECE at the national level with the committee. We're meeting in October. So we are very happy to continue serving this kind of a regional platform for exchange of experiences between national government and local government. And this is where I think we have like a natural synergy. But I think the two things what would be important for us as a part of this project, at one hand, documenting the experiences, because yesterday it was really amazing to hear from Georgia, from Serbia, from Kyrgyzstan about extremely innovative practices, about which we didn't hear because we were all in COVID. We did not meet in person. We need to document this and share with others. We need to also exchange with people like Strasbourg, like we heard, yes, Strasbourg, Madrid, or many, many other cities. But I agree, just finish, sorry for being long, but I agree with Shipra that standardized practices is important, because only then we are able to, have the same common language, the same language. So this is why VLRs are important, because this is a common language. Otherwise, yes, if we remain to be just contextual, we won't be able to get this exchange. So sorry for being long, Martina.
No, we're not. It's actually super interesting. First, to hear a bit more of the story, and which is very relevant and puts everything into perspective of how we got here. We are lucky that we are talking about localization today, not reconstructions of roads. We got far, and completely agree. I think it's quite very, very important. The implementation, the collection of experiences, making sure that what your colleagues and partners are doing is documented, analyzed, shared, and in a peer-to-peer global exchange. I thank the colleagues of DESA that have connected. We won't give them the floor because it's 4 a.m. in their side of the world, but they're here to listen to you, colleagues, and pass the floor to Sarah.
Okay. I will talk a little bit about the learning angle. So, of course, first express also my appreciation and agreement to what Shipra and Gunnar just said. So what I think we couldn't agree more to all what Shipra has given us, this inspiring also political opportunity we are at a moment where we go deeper and we know what multi-governance means. So that part is of course relevant for all of us, and I would like now to give some insight more to learning, so we go more into practical elements, because I think on the other side we are we are already.
Sarah, you wanna go into the learning track already?
Shouldn't
I think about let's get to the learning track a bit later. So
Okay, then
we can give a more.
Fine. I understood because I was reading your agenda and I thought, oh, so many. Okay, then maybe, maybe don't. But maybe then just for me, I will only react to what Renata just said. And I said it to her before. Here in our region and the region UNECE is very particular. And I think that element of decentralization that comes back ever and ever, we have to be prepared what it means. And that's why all your experience yesterdays were very inspiring for us. We usually live in our UCLG, we have the Board of Mayors, and maybe also your Board of Mayors you set up, you should think about what will UCLG mean to it? So how can we also work on that part integrated? Because of course here we have a region with very diverse governance systems, also that quite looks a lot to the European experiences. So we can contribute, we can be a board because we live these experiences also in UCLG. So for example, local governments, and I think for example, Bishkek, what you were telling us, we know that also in our Eurasian section, you are always very, very active. You are all the time involved, and all our network elements. So we have 8 regional sections, and they were completely independent of our World Secretariat, where I'm posted. And we look into how we can engage them, and they will say, yeah. They usually roll out the localization, but they have, of course, very, very different limits and limitations, which are very related to the multi-governance. So I think looking here into this diversity and listening to the agreement that we have from the VLR, we have to look, this is, of course, a collection of practice of data. Then we have the policy, that the need to policy making, but we also have, we could maybe look on this in VLR you are doing more into this governance, multi-governance aspect. What works, what is not working, so that we come out with a realistic way forward, that your partnerships, all these partnerships you have, city plus nation, go forward in details. Could it be housing? Could it be parks? Could it be health? There are many, many elements, but I think that depth that is required now for the VLR to go back and to inform all what we are doing on multi-governance, this is a big, big work, and we have to do this in all the region. And I think besides the VLR as a movement that is articulating, giving voice, giving possibility to see what cities are doing, how they contribute to the global agendas, this multi-governance usually is a way forward if we have very clear where are the bottlenecks, but also where are the opportunities, because this will be taken up by our associations. So we have in our members not only cities, we also have associations, and these associations usually do VSR. So this is another element, maybe to be aware of that as well. The VSR means voluntary sub-national review, and we coach the associations to go through this and to organize, because we know that only if we don't, if we talk about many cities, we can really enable a good dialogue on national level, which is another opportunity the VLR is giving us, and it's quite a strong opportunity in this sense. Again, connecting to shipwrecks in the morning. So I think from UCLG, we are very interested to see this happen, to support in particular that element, and maybe also look a little bit how we can engage the local government associations more. And yeah, so in this way, work more with the UNECE, which in our view brings a lot of interesting parts as well. No? For example, your focus on land, on land and regulation and law and real estate is very interesting into the debate. So we look forward to that. That's my introduction.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. And indeed, it's a long list, but it's important to have an initial view from the partners. Colleagues, before sharing the word to you, because at the end of the day, we want to listen to you, we have a little exercise that we wanted to put together. Delman, if you can put on the slide, or actually, if you can give me control of the slides, it's even better. I can share it. But I'm not a presenter. Can you give me the presenting options? So I'll share my slides. Okay. I'm sharing again. Okay, let's. I think that you. I can see my screen sharing.
I can see yours as well.
But you are pinned somehow. Are you pinned on the back screen, on the big screen? Can you see any of you is connected to the meeting with your laptop?
With
I'm in a good meeting. Or not.
You're not in the good meeting?
Well, I have all of you, but the list. But
You're in the wrong meeting.
you are here, but
We are here, but not here. This is surreal. This is really surreal.
Okay, sounds good.
Delman.
In the last image.
Yes.
Okay, it's the live sharing that this doesn't take. It's fine. Okay, I can share it with this one, Telma.
Yeah.
It's just the live sharing doesn't work. Yeah, basically there is a possibility on Teams with
Yes.
live sharing, which it's a bit more interactive, but it doesn't go. It's fine. I can share it there. There you go. Okay, colleagues, if I think that you are more or less everyone is familiar with Mentimeter. Have you ever used it? If you can go on menti.com with your phone or website or laptop, and you can enter this code. How do we see the results live?
I will share the screen.
Okay, super. So I need to stop sharing, right? Thank you, Gaia. Okay, so just as a I'm not sure if you.
What was the number?
Yeah.
So 34987.
Oh, it's on the very top. Thank you.
Yes. Are we all there? Yes. Okay. This is a very little questionnaire just to see what's your experience during the forum and also to look ahead on what we are going to do together. Gaia, if you can go ahead. So we have prepared a few questions. So, which is for you the most interesting topic that you have found during your participation during the forum, SDG 11, SDG 9 and 17, clean water, affordable and clean energy, innovation? Very well. This is live replies. Feel free to. I think I'm not sure if you have multiple choices possible. I'm pretty sure that you would be interested in all of them. But if you have to choose, clearly SDG 11 goes as on the top of the list. I think yes. Were you able to learn more about SDG localization, VLRs, and their connection with VNRs during your participation in the forum? Well, you have. I hope that the last option would not be clear.
Well, you put that option, somebody's going to choose it. I'm
No,
always tempted to choose it for the sake of it,
No.
not because of anything else.
But it's important that we get feedback also in this direction. I see there are mixed results. The good thing is that we have learned at least a bit, and that there is a general wish to learn a bit more. So, of course, I have the same feeling. It's always good to learn a bit more, and I think this is something that we can bring home with us. Gaia, if you can go ahead. Yes. Now we get a bit more into, a bit of reflections out of yesterday's discussion. What is actually the potential that you feel would be most beneficial for your city and country with regards to the development of the VLR? The 6 options are more or less the dimensions that we have discussed throughout yesterday's event, but also during the overall exchanges that we had. So political dialogue, participation, strategic planning, transparency and accountability, multi-level governance, and local data environments.
Gosh, all of the above.
Yeah,
Wow.
you need to rank. Of course, I think it's very much transversal. Are these the final results? Most probably. No, not yet. They're coming. Okay, so we say strengthening participation and inclusion. It's quite interesting, the relevance of strategic planning. So strategic planning is coming up first. Participation and inclusion still very up. Transparency and accountability somehow is on the 6th place. And multi-level governance, political dialogue, local data, and participation and inclusion. Okay. Very well. It looks like very much in line with what we have discussed and some of the key principles that emerged strongly in each of the discussion that we had. So the planning, that's why I was also mentioning VLRs do not have to happen in a vacuum, not in a vacuum horizontal. So at the local level where VLRs really need to be linked to plans and policies. The issue of data, we all know, and we will talk more about it, multi-level governance, and then the political dialogue and participation. I have the feeling that it's ranking all these priorities doesn't make too much sense, but it's important to see. It's important really to see that the link to strategic planning and data and multi-level governance are on the top of the agenda, because that's also for us very important. Next one, Gaia, please. What's the main challenge? So we have seen about the potential, we looked into the potential, still similar dimensions of what we have discussed before, which is the challenge that you foresee in the development of the VLR as the main one. The data, the engagement of communities, the lack of technical and human resources, and I think, Tanya, you have mentioned a lot about it, cooperation, strengthening capacities, the connection with planning, and of course the multi-level coordination. I think all of these again could be challenges, and all of them will emerge. Let's be clear, will emerge at some point in our joint path. But in your experience, as you have been involved, all of you, somehow into planning and policy development, what would be, in your opinion, the most challenging one? Data, the human capacities, and the connection with planning. Data again. Also with regards to data, there are different dimensions. Now we have the availability, we have the capacities of disaggregation, we have then the analysis, and Ragnar, you mentioned yesterday the interpretation, the most important thing. So how do we make sure that we study the data in the right way? So the data dimensions has very different nuances within it. Okay, we agree on the data. That's why also thanks to Gulnara, we are focusing all of our discussions these days on it. Gaia, if you can move ahead. Then, well, I think, I mean, I hope that this will go only in one direction, but how important is the multi-level connection between local and national institutions for SDG planning, implementation, and reporting? I will leave you the time to go ahead. It seems that we have an overall agreement on towards it is essential. I will
Really planted questions, guys.
Yeah, indeed. And I'm not sure how many questions we have. We go to the next one, please. Okay. If you would in one line describes expectations with regards to this project, one line. Strong trust in local government, support to local urban resilience, sustainable inclusive human assessment, collect local governments, get a picture about the sustainability of the city, and provide recommendations, build awareness around the SDGs in the region, introduce monitoring practices at the local level, better connection with the goals, I guess, throughout the different levels of government. I think we have more or less all answers. But that's interesting because it gets very much into the direction of trust and support to local governments, their connection with the multi-level picture, and having monitoring practices that will help us to have a picture about the sustainability at the city level. And I'm very happy to see the part on providing competent recommendations, because this is really something that we look into through the VLR process, and just providing an analysis, a snapshot of what is happening at the city level, and provide recommendations to further strengthening planning and policies in line with the SDGs. So we work into what we call action-oriented VLRs for this reason. Capacity building, this is something that it's thank you. Thanks a lot, Gaia. So this was just a bit of a little introduction. I'm happy that, it seems that out of the few discussions that we had in the past months, the events that we joined together, I have the feeling that we look at the picture of VLR, VNR, multi-level governance the same way, which is very important. It's a very important starting point. If we all agree, colleagues, again, taking it very informally, I would like to underline this. This is an exchange. It's not a panel. It's really for us to learn more about each other. We wanted to have a bit more for everyone, because some of you have spoken yesterday. We had bilaterals. I think that it would be important for you colleagues to tell us a bit more about what you are doing. We heard yesterday in the VLR studio the pillars and a bit the major components of your work, but I think it would be good again to that your experience as the starting point before getting into different dimensions of the project, if that is fine for you. Do you think? Okay. Maybe Nacha, can I give you the floor?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Should I play for?
You take as long as you want. Honestly, this is for us.
Not
It's-
like yesterday.
Exactly. No, exactly.
3 minutes.
It's not that. It's really about an exchange. The more that you feel like sharing this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for organizing all these meetings during these days. And today is also very important. Since the cooperation in terms of supporting implementation of SDGs in general is very important, and the partnership, as we have also one of the goals which is related to the partnership, because these partnership opportunities, it's really hard and almost impossible to realize all these SDG goals in reality. So Georgia, I would say that one of the country who are very actively supporting the implementation of this Agenda 2030, and we are quite an advanced in terms of developing the environment for supporting this implementation process. So, as I already mentioned several times, we joined this initiative from 2015, and Georgia was one of the first countries who joined the resolution, UN resolution. And we started this process with developing the proper institutional mechanism on a national level. And the government of Georgia created interagency council for all the processes that are related to the nationalization or the implementation process of the SDG. And it also, the interagency council has the function to monitoring the process of the implementation. The council is responsible to the prime minister, and it is chaired by the head of administration of the government of Georgia, which is prime minister's office. And the member of the government are deputy ministers and other stakeholders, non-governmental organization, private sector, and international organization, and also the member of the council, the member of the parliament, but they are without voting rights. And under the council, we have 4 working groups, which works in the relevant thematic direction, and the working groups. So the member of the working groups are from various sectors, and the working group are chaired by the state institutions and co-chaired by non-governmental organization and UN agencies. So we have 2 co-chairs, and their election process is quite transparent and on the rotation principle. Working groups worked on the development of the nationalization process, and along with the working group members, we identified the relevant tools and objectives and the indicators, and as a result, now we have all 17 goals nationalized, 93 objectives, and more than 200 indicators. And we created this national matrix, which is the highest policy documents on a country level, which is approved by the government of Georgia. And this document was developed with the approach of inclusiveness and transparency. And in this process, all the stakeholders were involved, and it was quite a long-term process, which was almost 2 years. So we were working on this document because it had two phases. The first phase to identify the main objectives of the link. So we started updating these documents that was submitted to the government for approval. And then, since the document was approved, we started the monitoring of this document, and the monitoring is implemented annually. All the state institutions which are responsible to each of the indicators are responsible to provide the updated information about the progress of implementation of each of the indicators. So for the monitoring purpose, we created electronic monitoring system, and through this system, the state agencies are able to provide the updated information, which is available publicly in different pages of the website. And so we integrated this SDG tracker in the website. So all the information also which are related to the processes or activities related to the SDGs are published on this website, and it's also visible for everybody, and it's publicly accessible to get all kind of information. Actually, in 2019, the State Audit Office made an audit on readiness of the SDGs at a country level. And the process was evaluated in a way that we had quite a progress in terms of nationalization and all the organization that was made in terms of developing of institutional mechanisms, developing a monitoring system. But they also identified some challenges that was accompanied with the process. And one of the challenges and one of the recommendation was to start the localization process. The state audits in coordination with the Secretariat of the SDG developed an action plan to implement the recommendation that was identified during this audit report. And we followed all these recommendations, and almost all of them are already implemented. The recommendation was also about the statute of the Interagency Council, as well as the terms of reference from SDG Working Group. And we revised all these documents, and we, as you know, from 2021, we started developing the localization action plan. And in this action plan, we have two objectives. One of them is mostly related to the trainings, awareness campaigns, and in the framework of this action plan, we developed the handbook for the localization process, and we also developed some brochures and videos for the local authority to support them in the process of localization. And from the end of 2021, we started the implementing of this action plan at the initial stage. So we identified the 5 pilot municipalities, also from the big cities of the country, and we start this process from that big cities. And in 2021, we added additional 13 municipalities. So we arranged trainings for them, but we arranged trainings at the beginning for the representatives of the municipalities, for the mayor's offices. But we also organize separate trainings for non-governmental organizations that are on local level. And we invited not only non-governmental organizations, but academia and private sector as well to and train them how they can be involved in the process and how can they be the part of the process and what is their role. And we tried to show them the benefits and the roles in the development of of the country and development of these SDG goals and the projects that are related to the SDGs. And the later stage, we started developing the local documents, similar that we have on a national level. But it's not the same as, the indicators are not the same because we identified only the goals, objectives, and indicators that are relevant for the municipalities and their competencies are in terms of these indicators, because we needed the indicators that would be implemented by the municipalities itself. And also the indicators, they are responsible to make the monitoring at a later stage. So we wanted the right indicators that will be the framework of the competencies. So the idea is that these local documents should be the integral part of the national documents, because the indicators that are covered by the national documents should be covered by the local documents. So the next, so this year we added more additional 14 municipalities, and in total we will have like 32 municipalities, plus we will start in cooperation with the inhabitants of Kenya. So we will start the project with the Tbilisi municipalities. So in total we will have like 33 municipalities in the process. And the idea is to monitor their implementation process, and we're also working on creating the right mechanism how to involve the municipalities in the working process of the working groups and the interagency council, which is on a national level. We also created this council and working groups on the local level for them to monitor the implementation process of the documents that they already created, but they will be also responsible to send all these data and reports to the secretariat annually, and then all this data will be submitted to the international to the interagency council that are created on a national level. So I also would like to mention that we already submitted 2 VLRs to the HLPF, which was in 2016 and 2020. The next one is planned to be submitted in 2024 because we're submitting once in 4 years. So far we didn't have any VLR since the process of localization is started just recently. But we hope that we will manage to have these VLRs for maybe not in 2024, but for the next but during the 2024, we also plan to mention, of course, the localization process and some data that will be already available from the municipalities that already created this document. And we're also planning to work with the private sector, which is quite problematic, I would say, not only in Georgia, but in each of the countries, because the possibilities when I had to meet my colleagues from different countries, they are always saying that the private sector is quite passive in this process. But we want to, we actually plan with one of the non-governmental organizations to develop the plan how to involve the private sector in this process, because I mentioned during the last days that when we submitted our winner in 2020, so we also attached the report that was related to the contribution of the private sector towards the implementation of the SDGs, and it was really very interesting report because we identified several quite good examples and activities that are implemented by the private sectors, which contributes to the implementation of the Agenda 2030. But they even didn't know that it was the part of the SDGs. So we want to show them that the role is huge in developing these Agenda 2030 and in general to support the country's development, to support the development on the global level. So we're also very much in line with the principle of no one left behind. And we always try to have stakeholders and to have the public consultations in each stage when we are like developing any documents. All the documents are shared with the stakeholders, and all the documents are shared publicly on the website, which is like special website for the SDGs. When we were working on the winner, we shared this document, with our stakeholders, as well as we published, the website for the other interested person who would be interested. Actually, we got quite a lot of recommendation during our last winner. We got more than 200 comments and recommendations for the winner, and most of them, of course, which were the relevant ones, reflected in the final draft of the winner. And I think that when we're talking about this evidence-based policy, this participation is the core evidence to hear the voices from all the people and to get maybe relevant information or data that might be useful for the process, for the specific process, or for the entire processes that are managed by the government in terms of development of and implementation of the SDGs. Sorry, I think they make
Thanks a lot, Maciej. That's lots of thoughts and lots of, first of all, congratulations to you, colleagues, and government of Georgia, because this is a very successful case.
Thank you.
One question would be, you refer to local documents that are developed in parallel or aligned with the national one. You consider these local documents local development plans? How do you see them?
Yeah, actually, what I missed is that when we develop this document, so this document is also linked to the local policy documents. So each municipality has their priority documents, and the schools are linked to that documents as well as the budgets. So it's mandatory to be linked with the budget as well to identify, because in Georgia we don't have a separate budget for the implementation of the SDGs, and we're ensuring the process that these policy documents, the SDGs are integrated in all the policy documents, and they also know that their next steps should be linked to these SDG local documents, and they will try to identify the right programs that contributes to the implementation of the indicators they already defined. So this will be kind of a roadmap for them for the next steps in the coming years. So they will work. It should be kind of guideline.
Okay.
The priority document.
Thank you. Makes a lot of sense. Again, questions, please.
How this work program to support and policy making at the national level, like strategic national plan, and also does it go back to budgeting? Because we see that in Western Europe now it's the SDG budgeting becoming really important part. Planning as well.
So as I already mentioned, we don't have separate budget, but when you're talking about the policy documents, so we also, from 2019, we have a new standards and rules for policy making process, which is in line in European standards. And when it's mandatory. So these standards and principles are approved by the government. So all the policy documents should be in line with these standards. And without these standards, so government who should not approve any of the policy documents and the standards says that all the goals that are mentioned in the policy documents should be linked to the SDGs, and also it's mandatory to have the budgeting, well-developed budgeting. So while we have these policy documents, the annexes, instruments of the budgeting, and each of the activities that are defined in the action plan of any strategy should be should be like budgeted, and each action plan has like the measures, and each measure should be attached with the budgets. It's very strictly checked by the administration of the government and by the Ministry of Finance, who is checking if the budget is correctly identified and if there is resources in the state budget. And if there is no resources, we also have the possibility to find a plan from international and partners, international organizations and partners. And we have such a rule that only the certain percentage can be the gap in the policy documents. If there's more than like 15% gap, so the policy document will be approved by the government. So this is also quite strictly controlled process to have the budgeting like they identified in a proper way.
So this would mean that, for example, on energy, just to take one goal, local government foresees activities, but if there is no budget for that activities, then the national level looks for the budget. In practice,
on the local level, so they are defining their activities by themselves, but the budgets, while they are working on the budget, they are working with the Ministry of Finance, so they're working together to identify the right budgets. So during the planning process of the budget, they have the priorities and the directions. So, and they have a certain amount of money for each of the direction, and then they are identifying the activities by themselves. But they know that they have the certain budget for this certain direction.
okay.
Okay, you mentioned the working groups that you have. Are those working groups by SDG? So how they are organized? How many are they?
So we have 4 working groups. It is like thematic working groups. One of them is democratic governance. One of them is economic development, social inclusion. And the 4th one is sustainable energy and environment. So each of the working group has the member from various sector, from almost all the sectors. So each of the working group has more than like 40 members. And we are organizing the meetings separately for each of the group. And when we are discussing some issues and when we're discussing some documents, our proposals, and like developing some ideas, then these ideas and all the proposals are submitted to the council for approval.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Nadia. When we go ahead, okay, if that is fine for everyone, I think that we can stay in Georgia. Like that, if you want to share a bit your thoughts, experience.
So we are behind in strategic planning. For now, we have a master plan for Tbilisi, but we don't have a development plan, which we are working with. We had talked with the UNDP to work with us with this, and we have to continue work about this. After pandemic, all the plans and the strategic documents was absolutely put on shelf because of different period. We have done quite a good progress in almost every direction on employment, on environment, and other directions. But pandemic hit it to all of them and created big gaps. What we have done after, but now what we are trying to reach. This process, what we are doing now, is helping a lot because we are starting coordination of strategic directions and sustainable development plans together with other departments of other municipal departments of city hall. While Tbilisi is the biggest city of Georgia and 1/3 of the population lives there, and probably half of employment workforce is accumulated there. Every single step makes quite a big difference. And while I worked in UN system before, and also the same department Nadia is leading now, it's very important for me also, and I'm trying to somehow push this process also. Mr. Vasilaya, deputy mayor, which you know very well, is also very eager and interested in this process and also involved. And as I know, in October he is planning to visit Geneva on your event, and what Tbilisi is doing, actually, majority of them is very pro sustainable development goals, but it is not systematized, and it should not be dependent on that Mr. Kahakaladze is very this kind of person who is working through this, but system should be which is not giving to, for example, future leaders to move from these ways, and that's why it's important national coordination and local coordination and system to be all for Georgian cities. And the forum also we are organizing, it's around the sustainable development goals. We always try to push on the first place sustainable development goals, which is connected with local governments and which they are able to plan via and have discussion about this. But as it was mentioned, the private sector involvement is very big. And also information and knowledge about sustainable development is not, I would like to be. And for long-term development, I think that these processes should be systematized, and also education system should help from every level, from school, from university, and others and others. And I was also discussing it yesterday. It's not crucial to have separate subjects for sustainability issues, but it's important to have elements on almost every subject, which is building the sustainability goals. And not only environment and even economic, but also economic and social, I would discuss together, because social sustainability is one of the biggest forces for economic sustainability and development. And while middle class is not strong in developing countries, and some, for example, in developing countries, business is not easily able to plan for long term. And short-term period planning means that they do not think about social development and social inclusion and social sustainability. But processes would keep going in the Tbilisi City Hall, and which also we are connected with our documents, our KPIs. And processes which we are planning, I'm pretty sure that, for example, in 1-2 years, this will be much different and much better situation for future development, and also international organizations to, for them to be easier to work with City Hall of Tbilisi, and to also have some workforce and some groups already ready for implementing this or that plans. And once again, I would like to underline that if we are able for your organizations or for via other organizations to help cities or Georgian cities to create strategic documents and development plans, which will be under sustainable development plans, it will help a lot, because human capital there is, but not with enough numbers, because of lots of local jobs, local daily tasks, and thinking something which in long term is very important. In daily tasks, it's not very easy. And we will try to make system which will be more sustainable and more ready for your plans also and our plans for we'll do our best. But your recommendations play a much bigger role when it's talk about developing countries, when it's talk about countries who are ready for sustainability and Western thoughts, environments, thoughts, economic and social development thoughts. But when international organizations give recommendations, it has much more weight than, for example, weight of separate department who tells us this is very important. But when we are, for example, stating the same ideas and making it from your documents, it's more easier to implement in policy.
Can I?
Sure,
Say
of course,
something?
please.
Yes. No, this is great. Thank you. And I was listening to both of you, Natya and Vaktan. Thank you very much. Two thoughts building on what you have said. One, I think a conscious approach to engage the private sector, whatever that private sector is, small p private sector, big p private sector, in the process of the VLR and in the process of identifying priorities and in the process of, because this process will look at building awareness of the SDGs, building an understanding of why the SDGs are relevant to the city, building, then the data and the evidence, identifying gaps. We've talked about all of that. Engaging the private sector early in this process might also be an opportunity to bring them on board. As you said, it's not very strong right now. Let's try and make it a conscious methodological input into this process. And this is also for the teams that are going to be supporting you, that let's try and make this something that we consciously advance. When you develop the stakeholder engagement approach for the VLR, make it a point that you look at the Chamber of Commerce, you look at the local, private sector actors, leaders, change makers, whatever are the big, and small entities that are driving investments in cities. So that's one that I wanted to. You've raised it now. It's early in the project. Let us make sure that we mainstream this in the philosophy and in the stakeholder engagement process. The second point that's very important is what you raised at the end, which is what is the next one after the VLR? It is the strategy documents, strategic plans, etc. We don't stop at the VLR. The idea is to help with these recovery plans, the way you've done it in the previous projects as well. Strategic plans, development plans. We don't want to introduce new plans. We want to support the alignment of your planning documents with the SDGs. Because introducing a new plan, which is outside, and I know a little bit about how countries in transition work. When you have a systematic planning system, you have a set of mandated planning documents. And the best way or the easiest way in some ways is to push an alignment of those planning documents with the SDGs, with the global goals, rather than try and introduce new planning documents, because that is a whole different institutional process. So after the VLR, look at where your next strategic plan of Tbilisi is due. Look at when the next strategic plan of Niche is due or of Bishkek is due, next development plan, next master plan, and make sure that we feed in from the VLR and the SDG alignment into that next statutory document, whatever that is. Oh, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Shipra. And I think these are the kind of, for everyone, these are the kind of inputs that we would like to move ahead in this meeting. So while we present, share, let's try to focus, okay, if this is what we want, we can then, consciously move in this direction, because the good thing about this process, this project, and the VLR is that it's a flexible tool process that we can really orient based on your priorities. Please.
I only second you exactly because from the experience, exactly what we see is that the private sector is very important for economic development. So maybe as a part of the project, one of the ideas that maybe kind of also we need to ask anyway, private sector, the local level, how they want to be. How they want to be.
Yes.
Actually, for some other cities in other projects, we're trying to develop kind of a survey-based approach. And I don't know if you already have anything like this, but this is what we are asked by the cities to also ask from private sector how they want to be engaged, what the local government, national government can do to create enabling environment. So that's one thing. And on strategic plans, I agree that we asked also in other projects by other cities about the same, that human resources are limited, experiences are limited. So maybe again, our more expertise is needed in saying like this is what should be strategic plan and this is what should not be. You use your plan, but it should be, it shouldn't be. This is how strategies
Can be mainstream.
and technical expertise is important.
Absolutely.
Colleagues, please. Shelton.
Maybe also to add on this, as you were saying, you are aligning budget, finally the budgets and that will make the SDGs implementable. No, I think also Nadia made a lot of points on that. But for any strategies, and I think there is very important that prep, not only that you have another document, but also in the strategy that the most important indicators are those who are able to report change on. So not only that I align, but what is a change I can expect in the next years. No, so I think I was just looking on the Georgia web, and sometimes I think there can be more indicators than the typical ones, you know, that will be changing. So local indicators, for example, urban health. What are you really? Where do an indicator will help you to support the policy? And so that one is important. That is making where you can insist on the change. And when we go yesterday back to the experience of Madrid, it was there were indicators fixed through an alignment exercise 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and now they could be taken up because they had that indicators, which you then can measure. And I think there is maybe another filter on your 104 indicators, which you have, but also on those who will the localities are really able to change. So there's maybe another to have that strategic vision on that.
Thanks, Sarah. And maybe just remind everyone, there is water, there is coffee. We will not take a break, but we move ahead with the discussion. So any time that you feel like going for a coffee or a break, feel free just to say that we are all free to leave the room in case. We go ahead. Maybe I go to the other side of the table to the colleagues of Kyrgyzstan. If you want to, I mean, we heard your experience and the whole time that you had for your speech yesterday, and we had also bilateral, but it's for everyone in the room now to hear a bit more about your experience. We had the Mentimeter that helped us explain a bit more. If you want to share anything more that you feel like sharing in the context of your work and in the context of the project, feel free.
I just like to mention one point. We do many works, but we do not have much information about SDGs. So our colleagues made a great job, hard, but they don't know about SDGs. It's a problem for us because they say, for example, they say we are working, but international departments are relaxing. And I think that we should pay more attention to the public awareness of the SDGs in the city. I would like to join.
May I ask you, when you say that you don't have much information about the SDGs, you mentioned about
People don't know about
Okay.
the SDGs.
So it's about raising awareness, engaging communities.
It's that whole advocacy piece. If, just to say, I think there are two parts to the advocacy piece. Very often what happens, and Madrid maybe did not say it openly, but very often what happens, even in other cities, is that the SDGs are somehow seen as a box within the international department rather than something that everybody in the municipality relates to. Oh, this is something to do with the outside world. It's got nothing to do with us. And that is the shift that, number one, we need to have within the municipality and within the city administration, alignment of everybody's departmental work plans with the SDGs is an important, the horizontal, piece that we're talking about, not just vertical coherence, but horizontal integration and coherence. And for that, this awareness piece is very important. The other piece of localization that we always push for is the stakeholder engagement across and outside the city hall. Localization is not only about local governments. So unless there is broad-based awareness, ownership, advocacy campaign, and if you think that is what is needed, then part of the tools that we should be able to offer as part of the project is an advocacy, set of advocacy instruments that you can tailor and use in a campaign across the city. We can also offer the opportunities for you to bring other partners who you think will benefit from this into all the different, and there is a whole work stream on global advocacy, which we really have, into all the different opportunities. So it's very important that you also identify who would benefit from this sort of exposure, including private sector partners, who would benefit from this sort of exposure to the global dialogue, and then we can make it happen. In the October Forum, in the World Urban Forum, in the high-level political forum. There are opportunities to inform, engage, educate people, but you have to identify the instruments that you would need, and we can try and make those available from the project side. I agree, it's very, very important. Unless people own it, they will not use it. And unless they know it, they will not own it. No?
As Louis, you wanted to say something?
Спасибо. Конечно, как
Sorry, I have to log in.
опыт Грузии, да, сейчас поделились с нами. Конечно, нам еще надо делать это, нам это предстоит. Хотела бы как бы ясность, да, внести. Вообще мы на национальном уровне и с мэрией города Бишкек, и с мэрией города Ош очень честно работали в части адаптации целей устойчивого развития и внедрения показателей цели устойчивого развития в их городские программные документы, так как на национальном уровне, как я уже сказала, да, более 80% задач цели устойчивого развития очень хорошо коррелирует с теми приоритетами, да, национальными. И поэтому говорить, что мы вообще в этом направлении не ведем работу, я считаю, это неправильно, да? Потому что как я уже до этого говорила, у нас есть индекс регионального управления. Этот индекс для муниципальных органов является как бы рекомендательным, но несмотря на это можно увидеть эти показатели даже и сейчас вот мэрия города Ош тоже в прошлом году при разработке своих программ как раз включили именно показатели, которые мы как рекомендовали, да? Кроме этого, я еще говорила, что сейчас создается онлайн-платформа для взаимодействия по реализации целей устойчивого развития. Органы местного самоуправления были одним из инициаторов создания такой онлайн-платформы, потому что невозможно, да, на каждый раз в столицу приезжать, получать какую-то информацию, да, и потом это распространять на местах. Поэтому это одним из предложений было создать такую онлайн-платформу, чтобы они самостоятельно могли получать информацию для повышения потенциала как органов местного самоуправления, так и других заинтересованных сторон. В этом году, месяц назад мы как раз переговорили с представителями ПРО местного офиса по дизайну проекта по локализации цели устойчивого развития на местном уровне. Сейчас как раз идет обсуждение, буквально неделю назад онлайн у нас ВКС встреча была с международным экспертом, с местными экспертами, а также как представителями ПРООН по данному вопросу. Сейчас еще как бы дизайн обсуждается, как мы видим, как они как бы предлагают, да, два эксперта. Мы надеемся, что в ближайший месяц мы уже сделаем дизайн и уже пойдет как бы предложение, да, для начала такого проекта. Что касается на национальном уровне, я уже говорила, сейчас как раз начинается, да, работа по подготовке следующего национального добровольного обзора. Мы надеемся, что если в 2024 году мэрия сделает свой местный обзор по целям устойчивого развития, он как раз станет одним из опорных документов, на котором как бы будет готовиться и национальный добровольный. По опыту прошлого национального добровольного обзора сейчас создаются рабочие группы. И в первом национальном добровольном обзоре были членами рабочих групп и представители города, мэрии Бишкек, Аша, города Ошта, и как два пилотных районов, они вот, два представителя двух районов тоже вошли в рабочую группу. Эта рабочая группа очень была широкая, там и гражданское общество было, там с ассоциацией как бы бизнес-среды, да, с ассоциацией легкой промышленности и с ассоциацией переработчиков мусора. Поэтому и отдельным блоком шли представители молодежи, представители уязвимых групп, да, потому что каждая рабочая группа работала со своими заинтересованными сторонами. У нас очень активное гражданское общество именно по социальным вопросам. На сегодняшний день сейчас вот активизировались именно гражданское общество, которое занимается вопросами экологии и вопросами, конечно, менее как бы активные это те ассоциации, которые ведут чисто экономические вопросы, да? Экологические гражданское общество и социальное гражданское общество у нас очень активное. Оно иногда даже больше усилий прикладывает, чем государственные органы. Да? Ну, это, наверное, в силу государственная машина, как бы оно медленнее как бы реагирует на те или иные изменения, а гражданское общество, оно более оперативное, и иногда они больше поставляют информацию по тем или иным вопросам, которые как бы просто стоят в стране. Если вкратце.
Just would like to add that I mean, we have people who knows about SDGs, but these people are, we should increase this number of people. It's,
Thanks a lot, Merim. It's very interesting. And I think, Azulu, you mentioning the dynamic of the civil society in collecting data, sharing data. In one of the experiences that we had in the city of Florence, the metropolitan city of Florence in Italy, that we supported with on the VLR, I think the most innovative piece of data and the collection of information came mainly through the engagement with civil society and through the whole stakeholders engagement and consolidation. Because the data that was collected, I mean, it was, of course, it's very solid, the data that you have in Italy, ISTAT, and the whole European and National Office of Statistics, but there were certain indicators that would have not absolutely been possible to measure if not for the involvement of the civil society. And I have one question, which would be, I mean, it's more of a proposal or a way of thinking, because we have been involved in few of the, in supporting few voluntary national reviews processes brought on board by the relevant ministries or in cooperation with the Resident Coordinator Office as kind of advisors on how to integrate the local level, local reporting instead of national reporting, international reporting. And one of the most appreciated, or at least one of the outcomes that we saw in the development of the VNR is through this whole consultation, how is then reflected into the report? How do we use the report not only to say we have consulted X local governments or X local governments are part of the task force? How can we use the report, the national report for? And in both the cases of Finland as well as Tanzania, we have come up with a sort of SDG localization dedicated section. So the information collected by the local governments, whether through VLRs or consultations or sharing of data from the local level, that was transversal, no, in the information in the VNR, but then an SDG localization dedicated section on the status of localization and specifically proposing way ahead on how to strengthen the localization within the country was very powerful in many cases, because it puts the VNR into a perspective of not only taking information but proposing something for the future of the localization process in the country. So, given that you are in the stage of the task force, and there are 2 municipalities pilots that are part of the task force, and it's like just as a suggestion on how you would then reflect this into the draft. These have been very powerful and successful in other cases. can share with you the drafts, the examples that we have in case you want to have a look at it. Cool. If there are no questions, we go on the other side of the table again.
Of course, I
Please.
thank you again for inviting Serbia to participate. He is in the Regional Forum, and also many thanks for choosing UNECE to bring a first VLR to Serbia. I think that is you choose is a good choice because UNECE is third city, not Belgrade is a metropolitan, and I think that is not enough interesting people in Belgrade, for example, for that, because everything I think started with individuals action, and that individuals is here from national and from local level. As you may know, Serbia had various changes, problems, and instability in past 20, maybe 30 years. And the stability came maybe past 10 years, maybe. And all government on the national and the local level focus on infrastructure, on building, on that visual things, not on strategy, and not so much to some kind of changing the system, old system, and using a strategy model to a long-term vision, And we have a very good system for from national and from local level years ago, because we have Serbia is a very governmental country, but that focus on only infrastructural projects bring to us one instability to a strategic point of view on all levels, on government and the local level. Because that every document, mandatory documents we have on local, on government and local level. But that document is not linked and not they do with a purpose. I say yesterday, they how to say they they elaborate that documents only for that is a mandatory for a second level on and bringing a building permit. I'm honest to that, but there is people who working on a strategic documents on the government level, like Sinisha and their department, but that goals is missing on the to bring to the local level. Yes, that is a very how to say multi-level governance challenge. Yes, multi-level governance challenge. And I will say we don't have communication, good communication, and we don't have collected the data for all important things. We have some collecting data that will Sinsha will say after me, and
we don't have a link, local planning documents with a budget. Now we, I don't know, 2 years ago, for example, city of Niš delivered a local development plan, which is linked with the budget. That is the first document we linked with the budget. But there is, for example, general urbanistic plan. Also, that is a strategical document, but that document is not linked with the budget. And general urbanistic plan is a first step for, I don't know, for after general urbanistic plan, we have another plan and we have a building permit. And what happened in the all day life, for example, well, every government on the sea chose to, I don't know, to change something and to build something. They change the plans and building that. Not with the data, not with decision making, goes with needs of buildings, of one sectoral needs, you know, for investment. If investation is very good, for example, they will change the urbanistic plan and they go to building permit. What we do last year in city of Niš, we changed something. We try, as I emphasized yesterday, with some kind of education, of meetings and something like that. And we want to develop a new system with better communication within institution, with better participation of the cities and private sector, and with formation of a new department for monitoring within the existing administration. And that goals I must say that is a very unpopular, but I must say because that happened in the city of Niš because of my position in a government. And I linked it with all, in one hand with institution for urbanism, and in another hand with Department of Urbanism. And that is a two very important institutions in the city who delivered a urbanistic plan and plans. And because I am 15 years passed away in the Ministry of controlling that system, I know what is the problem is. And I try to fix it, something. And I chose one document, that is the General Urbanistic Plan. And we announced that we are going to do a new urbanistic plan, like a movement, you say movement, you know. And there is, in that process of delivering that urbanistic plan, we have something, we call it conditions of public authority holders. That is mean that if you have, if you want to give a purpose of a land in someone, you must put conditions. We must respect that conditions, you know. But what is going to do with the conditions? Conditions is bring with a wrong data, or with missing data, or with a past data. And that is a key, and that is, I think, we must translate SDG to our language, to our process of urbanistic plans, you know. In Serbia, that moment is in a condition of public authority holders in a process of delivered urbanistic plan. Because that conditions bring from a lot of institutions. That institutions is, for example, institution for heritage, for natural heritage, for cultural heritage, for example, for water, for, I don't know, different sector, forest. That institution is separately, you know, and all of that institutions had a different kind of conditions, you know, and when urbanists want to say respect that conditions, they don't can they can, because that conditions a lot of conditions in this, and we must put together all of that institution, and that we try in a process of general urbanism. And I think when we delivered a VLR for city of Niš, this is a very good moment to link it with that public institution and that process in our city. And also, we can, in this way, we can translate it to all of municipality, because municipality doesn't understand SDGs, doesn't understand what does that mean, because the conditions of public authority holders is defined by a law of building and construction in the Republic of Serbia, and that is a mandatory. They must put that conditions, you know, and I think that is a way how we make it in the local life. So, thank you.
Make it possible, yes.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. And congratulations also for the new position that we discussed.
Yes, and my new position is a urban planning inspector, and I am in authority of a municipality, and that is position for pushing up not only the city of Niš, my head is city of Niš, but all of municipality, like education, or push away to do VLRs like this. I said this.
Let's see. I hope that the experience will be interesting, successful, but also useful for all the processes that you have mentioned. I think that, again, going back to what we were saying at the very beginning, we look at this as a first step in, and then possibly going forward. So
Yes.
it would be great if we would then, you know, make sure that other municipalities have better understanding, can report and use of VLR as a report.
But I have one question for Shipra, maybe, or you say that we can bring some individuals or institution to VLR process. That is mean that how we have a freedom, for example, to go to Niš, I will back, and if I have something, some people in my mind who will maybe, I don't know, motivated to do something with the VLR, I am free to ask them for including, and to ask Martino what they mean about that, or how they worked after this meeting.
No, I think, so for me, I think you need to, in any case, build up a group around you of committed people who are driving the VLR process. It's not just you, Tanya and Sinisha, or or Miriam and Isulu or Natya and Vakna. It's really about building a core group around you of people who are going to take the VLR process forward with you. Right? And these could be people drawn from different departments. They could be people drawn from different stakeholder groups. They could be people drawn from different partners, constituencies, private sector. And then eventually that is the group that should be taking this process forward. We, as I said, will be very happy to look at opportunities to include, in addition to yourselves, those people in different hybrid meetings, global meetings, expose them to the global discussion, include them in capacity building workshops, in learning events. We'd be happy to do that, but you need to first go and organize a core team around you, which will help build up this VLRs. That you need a team of champions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Individuals are great, but you need a critical mass of individuals, good committed individuals around you. That's why.
I think what Miriam was saying, that it is raising awareness,
Yes.
really, and to promote this idea and to share it with the others.
But my question is, what would you need in a way from us? How formal it should be? For instance, if I'm bringing a parallel with the process of what we do, like country profiles and urban development, we usually we have like a formal procedure where we send a letter to, following requests that you submitted, like City of Niš submitted a request to do the VLR. And then following that, we as the UN sending to the mayor's office and the minister's office saying, congratulations, now you're starting your VLRs. Could you please establish your steering group? Send us the names. Just to formalize procedure, because in some countries it is needed, some countries is, you need to be more formal, you need to be less formal, but maybe also for us to document the process, maybe we could prepare also from partners saying that, dear Mayor of Niš, we expect you to, as a part of this VLR, to establish steering committee of your VLRs. Could you please send us the names? And then it's also, does it help?
Might help.
It may help. I will be checking
So you
that.
can go with us saying that you're in the group, you're committed.
Yes, but we need it with a private sector. For example, if we choose somebody from private sector and from NGO or some institution, how they work there. Because the city don't represent them,
Can I get here? I mean, there are different examples of the local coordination team. Let's put it like this, So, and in some cases, it was one person driving for everyone. Okay. In other cases, which normally are the most successful, a coordination team is anchored or at the mayor's office or within the planning, team, unit, section, department. I think in that sense, then every context is different.
Yes.
But it's good that colleagues from different departments are part of this coordination team. You have been working, and Tanya, this is one of the main things that you say, that you have been successful in putting people together, and that's extremely important point, I think, for access of information to feed into the VLR, but then to raise that awareness that the VLR doesn't stay only in your department, but the VLR is owned by the municipality of Niš, and then we can, promote to stakeholders. So in the sense, I think that it's, your municipality, city,
Yes,
and territory much better than we do.
I think that is formally will stop some kind of I don't know next steps, because I can put a letter now with that position to mayor of a city and to bring some people.
Yeah.
But maybe they will change it
Yeah, of
next year.
course, of course.
And after that, that is a problem. I must take away to, I think there is a organic way to do that, because I know that system. I know city of mission. I know individuals in all institutions in the city, in academia, and also in the private sector who will be interested in.
That is
And
exactly what is.
that is a very,
That is exactly.
I will bring together them.
Exactly. That is exactly what is needed, Tanya. You know the institutions, you know the personality, so
Yeah.
whomever you feel like should be part of this
Yes.
exercise, I think the more inclusive it is, the better.
Yeah.
Then also another part of the experience is that in this local coordinations group, there is always one or two people that carry the burden. You see
Yeah.
what I mean? Not everyone will share the weight of the work in the same level. These are, sometimes it's felt there is additional work. So it really depends on the engagement of the person that you find in front of you. In general, if this coordination steering committee work very well in the moment that you bring on people on board that are trusted, especially in a condition like the environment that you have already created with this kind of coordination existing. But then there is one or two persons that will have to push activities forward.
Yes, because we, with all the crises that we had, we lost quite trust in institutions, people, not completely, but quite a lot. And so it is a lot on the personal initiatives, but we are building new networks now.
Yeah.
And so it is really to regain the trust that was a bit lost with all the crises and all what was happening. But we go on.
Super. Finish over to you.
Okay, thank you. So I shared here on the screen something that we have. The Georgian example was very, very inspiring. That you have it really from the Prime Minister's office, and it's really, it is kind of top down, which is really, really inspiring, and all compliments for it. In Serbia, we don't have it at the level of Prime Minister's office. So the institution which is coordinated, it's a statistical office of the Republic of Serbia. So on the site of the statistical office of Republic of Serbia, we have this dashboard for sustainable development goals. And here you can see, I don't know why they have this number of 248. Yesterday we've heard that there are 231 indicators, but anyway. And here it is written that 51% have been calculated, 126 in Serbia. Then of course you have by SDG which are calculated. So we have the indicators, but what we were mentioning, you mentioned yesterday the policies. I didn't have so much time yesterday to mention our national urban policy we have since 2019, which is our national document for SDG 11 in particular. And in that national urban policy, we incorporated the indicators for SDG 11. So among our national indicators, we have 43 indicators there. There are 10 which correspond completely to the SDG 11 indicators. So that's the recommendation, but it is at national level. So now VLR is going to help us to localize that. And we have really not many activities at local level. But besides that national urban policy that we have, so urban policy, we don't have comprehensive development policy for the Republic of Serbia. And that is a big challenge because it was defined when Serbia separated with Montenegro in 2006. We had a new constitution as a new country with a new territory and new shape. We had new constitution. In that constitution in 2006, which is still in force, was defined that Serbia should have national development plan. And we still don't have it, the comprehensive. We have many strategies, sectoral and so on. Urban development strategy, it is integrated, but sometimes it's considered as a sectoral strategy and so on. It links to the goal 11, but not to all goals. So we should have that national development plan. And now we are starting to talk a bit more about it, that comprehensive plan. And what Tanya mentioned, our policy, the things politically which are pushed are mostly economical. So it's not sustainable if you look only to economy and infrastructure and so on. Environmental, social aspects are a bit neglected, and that is where sustainable development goals can help. And our country is politically supporting SDGs. So there is that declarative support to SDGs, but it's not essential. It is so there is much work to do, much more work to do in that, and to reach really not only private sector, absolutely to reach the private sector also, but to reach politicians, decision makers, policy makers, and even the document that I've showed yesterday, the National Spatial Plan of Serbia. We are making the new one because this one expired in 2020. So as Tanya said, at personal level, I'm coming to World Urban Forums and so on. I'm sent, I write the report, nobody reads that report, you know, it finishes in the drawer and so on.
She's a traveler.
Yes, and then she's going there to do some shopping, sightseeing, and so on. And then we are really trying, and I had discussion with, for example, those policymakers when the new plan was starting to be elaborated. So what they did, they say, oh, it is going to be integrated. So they put the chapter on economy, the chapter on society, the chapter on, which is the third one, environment. But the chapters don't communicate. So they put all in the same document, but they don't integrate it territorially. So that at one point you have economy and combine different interests and so on. No, and then they say, yes, we use integrated approach. It's not integrated approach if you just put them aside. They should communicate. So those are some challenges. And what I mentioned yesterday, I'm going to repeat it, but I think it's very important that we have some objectives also, but those indicators really should be connected to the objectives. So and in another way to the implementation. So to reflect really the things that are happening, how they improve the values of indicators. So I think that we have really a lot of challenges, and so this is really, I think, an important step, and we are going to try to raise the visibility with this VLR and to have that appropriation of all institutions that are going to provide us the data, so they are going to feel that it's their document. And so I think it's the way to do it. And I would like also to mention that is something that we are doing with the Resident Coordinator's Office. Last year, they did this small publication, which is progress in monitoring environmental related SDGs. So in Serbia. So we agreed to do this year the same publication, but for urban development related indicators. So also in this way, and UN Habitat is going to support that as well, in this way to improve that visibility of indicators. So we are going to print it out, to share it with the others and so on, because I think it's one of the ways to raise awareness, really, to make those publications and to really just that we don't do the indicators for the sake of indicators, but they really serve for something, and that they serve for those policies, and that the policies serve for the implementation and all the way around.
Fantastic, thank you.
May I have a question?
Mhm.
So you mentioned that you don't have these national post documents, right?
National?
Post documents.
We have many sectoral
Yeah,
documents,
but it's not the national level.
but not comprehensive.
Yeah,
We have a law of a special plan, you know, that is, but that special plan is not like a development plan.
Yeah.
That include every sector.
And how do you link the SDGs into your policy documents, or you have a separate pages for implementing that?
Well, I don't have impression that we need a particular, the small budget is needed, you know, just for the promotion that we organize, for example, as we organized last year for the first time, the National Urban Forum. So we had there stakeholders from different sectors, but not only thematic sectors, like environment, health, and so on, but also sectors in the sense of private, public, NGO, academia, international organizations. So we really had 350 participants from 8 different sectors. So that was an occasion for promotion, but we had it in April last year, but there was not so much follow-up
You asked how we budgeting SDGs,
How you
how you
you're
implement.
ensuring the implementation?
implementation. We are trying to position them in public policies, in public policy document. So
Sectorally, I think sectorally in law or
Yeah,
something.
but do you have all relevant sectoral documents mentioning to all these 17 goals?
Yes, we have a law.
we do have a sector, even at national level. We have transport for environment, for climate change, and so on. But I don't have. I know in urban development strategy that we have linked to SDGs, but I don't think that in other sectoral strategies we have links to other SDGs.
Directly linked.
Yes.
Do you even don't have like a medium-term policy document on the national level, like maybe government programs?
We do have. We started making those, and yes, there is a medium-term government program as well. And I have to admit that I don't know how much they make link to SDGs.
Can you answer your questions about Georgia?
Yeah, sure. So we have these national documents, which is until 2030, and all these 17 goals are linked to the goals that are defined in these documents. We also have a 4-year medium-term program of the government. So we have such a rule that when we have a new government, they have to present their 4-year strategies of the development of the country. So we have this document as well, and the document that is created just recently, and which is until 2030. So for the implementation of this 2030 strategy, we are developing knowledge. We also have created the mechanisms, which is also mentioned in the strategy, how to monitor and influence the progress of the implementation of the strategy. So we are monitoring once in 6 months, and we're also preparing annual monitoring reports. And we have planned the midterm evaluation, which is in 2025, and we will have the final evaluation. So when we will have this midterm evaluation, we will define, we need to assess the processes, how well we planned the strategy, and how well we are planning the activities to implement the objectives and goals that are defined in the strategy. So actually, this is the first document which is in line with the new standards, which is in line with the European standards. So let's see how successful we will implement this strategy, which should ensure the implementation of the SDGs.
Yeah, you reminded me, we also have the action plans in line with strategies for the implementation. So there we have specific activities. And for example, for urban development strategy, we have action plan with 115 activities. And for each activity, we have the resources which are defined, the timeline, and the responsible institution. So it is also something that supports the implementation, the action plan which supports the implementation of the strategic documents.
Thank you.
Colleagues, one thing, given the fact that UCLG colleagues will have to leave at some point, I would like to give a bit of space to the colleagues of UCLG to go through the learning module, which is part of the capacity building learning. And I will be very interested, not just to know your opinion, also how this could be reflected, or we could learn a bit from your training capacity building that you have been doing. So maybe I will put my screen on.
I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. And we can go through the presentation if it's fine for you, colleagues. Just one thing I wanted to make to see. This is just a very quick overview of the VLR approach. We will get to that a bit later. But you see on the left, there is exactly what we were talking about, the consolidation of the local teams and the local national arrangements, even before the starting of the whole work. So just for you to be mindful of time, and I'm grateful that we took a bit more time to explore the experiences. I think that there are we don't have the time to go through all the presentation that we have planned. We will share this with you